Hi, I'm Ryan Olrich. I'm the Executive Director of Priority Spokane. We're an organization tasked with collaboratively identifying and addressing priorities for Spokane County. It was a few years ago that we looked at data that showed us that Spokane County has the highest domestic violence and child abuse rates in the state. So that led us to our current priority of addressing trauma and preventing violence. So we are doing that in a unique and innovative way through a partnership with the Center for Trauma and Stress Education, as well as with Eastern Washington University. We are launching COVID Stress and Trauma Education Programs, or CSTEP for short. Now, what is trauma? Well, trauma is damage to the mind that occurs as a result of a distressing event, often the result of an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds our ability to cope. Now, the last year has been really hard, and that might be an understatement. The pandemic has impacted all of us in so many different ways. And not just the pandemic, but racism, protests, division, isolation. So many things have happened over the last year that have been really hard. And it's likely that many of those events have caused some trauma and that all have caused significant stress. So it's important that we take steps to address trauma. Sometimes our tendency is to shy away, to ignore, to hope it'll just go away, to hide from trauma. But just as we take physical steps to address the flu, we eat chicken soup, we take naps, we rest, we need to also take steps to address trauma. Now, I have something with me today. I have a piece of a neighbor's driveway, broken piece of concrete. Now, it was a couple years ago that my neighbor got a crack in their driveway, but they just ignored it, tried to pretend it wasn't there, went about their business. But over the course of several winters, that crack filled with water, rain, and then snow, and froze and melted, refroze. Long story short, their driveway was entirely ruined because they didn't take steps to address that first crack. The same goes for the damage caused by trauma. As tempting as it sometimes is to try to ignore, hide from, run away from trauma, we need to take steps to heal it. And so CSTEP provides just that. The COVID Stress and Trauma Education Program takes place over 6 groups. They can be conducted virtually. In every group, individuals have a chance to just unpack in a safe, structured environment some of the events of the last year, to talk about it, to share their feelings, to recognize that they are not alone in how they're feeling about many of the events of the last year, while also receiving some great evidence-based tools and practices to assist them in handling the stress and trauma that may have accumulated from the last year. Now, some of the topics that are covered in CSTEP: trauma prevention and recovery, coping, managing increased work, life, and relationship stress, accurate expression and validation, managing attention and emotion, building connections, understanding grief and loss, reducing suffering through opposite action, or just some of the concepts that are covered. Now, a few years ago, I was on a red-eye flight from Alaska to Portland, Oregon, and I had fallen asleep. I woke up to loud screams. Passengers around me were screaming. There was a loud hissing, like air was escaping. And as I came to my senses, I thought the plane was going down. It turns out that actually a passenger in the row behind me was having a psychiatric episode and had attacked other passengers. And then it tried to force open the emergency exit door while in flight. Now, long story short, thankfully, passengers and crew were able to restrain him. We were all asked to remove our shoelaces to restrain him, to prevent him from hurting himself or others. We made an emergency landing in Portland. I left that flight ready just to get on with my life, thankful that I was on the ground, but largely ready to just forget and move on. Now, the next week, I was boarding another flight for work, as I often did. I showed up at the airport, went through security. But as I was getting ready to board my flight, I started to feel really extreme anxiety. I started sweating. I felt this tightness in my chest. I was trying to process what the heck was going on because I'm a fairly frequent flyer. And then I realized that that previous flight, that red-eye flight, had caused some trauma that I tried to ignore, that I tried to pretend wasn't there, that I tried to just shrug off. I needed to take some steps to heal and address that trauma. Now, I think that there are many individuals, maybe yourselves included, that may have some unresolved trauma, that have some significant stress, and maybe not just from the last year. But we want to be able to provide you with some tools and support for healing that stress, because trauma is normal. It's our body's normal response to extreme stress. But you know what also is normal? Healing and resolving that trauma. Now, some of the great tools that are provided in these C-step groups: surfing the emotion wave, avoiding judgment, recognize and practicing that not knowing is okay. This is a key concept, especially in a world where we often try to judge all the time. Accurate expression and validation, and understanding grief and loss. These are all important tools and concepts that are shared. So if you'd like more information on this unique program, maybe you'd like to lead a group yourself or participate in one, visit our website, www.priorityspokane.org. The individuals that have already completed these groups have had terrific feedback. We've had folks share that this has changed their lives and that this is the support and the tools that folks need right now. So we're excited to provide this resource and program to you and to our larger community across Spokane County. Thank you.